This is the Hyundai Tucson, one of a great many tall riding SUV crossovers for people who want a car with rugged good looks and a tall driving position that feels like a hatchback to drive. Is it even possible though to compete with such a wide range of cars, from the SsangYong Corando to the Audi Q3, or is the Hyundai Tucson a bit of a jack of all trades, too expensive on one hand and not luxurious enough on the other to keep up with more well-rounded rivals? The Tucson is available with a range of petrol and diesel engines, including a base 1.6 litre petrol, a 1.6 litre diesel and 2 litre diesel available with all-wheel drive. 48 volt mild hybrid tech is also available on these engines to help reduce running costs. Inside the Hyundai Tucson, while the driving position is definitely taller than a hatchback, it's not exactly sky high. There's plenty of adjustment in the steering wheel and the seats. That's partly down to the fact that in this model you get electric adjustment as standard on the driver and passenger seat. Also, you'll notice that I've got plenty of headroom, even though this car has the optional panoramic sunroof. The pedals are nicely centered and well spaced out, which is great if you've got big feet or you're wearing wellies or something, whereas the gear shift sometimes feels like it's a bit of a stretch away, and I keep banging my arm into this armrest, which annoyingly doesn't quite fold out the way enough. The seats are very good. They strike a nice balance between being comfortable and well bolstered enough to hold you in place, and in this model they are both heated and cooled. It's just a shame that there's no extendable thigh cushion if you've got long legs. It does open up though to reveal a deep storage box, which is large enough for a big bag of crisps, although there's no power in there, so you're not going to be able to charge your phone. You get two cup holders here, a small kind of oddment tray here, and a weird sort of thin pocket there, plus an open cubby at the front, which in this car has got a wireless charger, which satisfyingly is the exact size of my massive phone. You will need that though, because there is only one USB in this car, although you do get two 12 volt accessory sockets, which is a bit old school, and an aux. Look at that. You get big door pockets with a bottle-shaped recess right in the middle, which feels a bit inconvenient if you want to put anything else in there. And there's also a warning telling you not to put a hot drink in them, in case you thought that was a good idea. There's actually a similar icon on these air vents, which explains how they work, in case you didn't know, which is nice. Cars from the second trim level up get this larger touchscreen infotainment system, which has physical buttons down the side, which I think are perhaps a bit too far away in their extremities. It's a freestanding unit that juts up out the dashboard, but not too high so that it would impede on your visibility out. I found there can be a small delay in navigating between its different menus, although the fonts and icons are at least nice and big, so it's easy to use while on the move. In appearance, it does look a little bit like an old iPhone, which means it is starting to feel quite a bit dated. Now, this is a high specification model, but even so you get a simply huge amount of standard kit that you don't often see on cars this side of a limo, such as those cooled seats I mentioned earlier. That said, this climate control panel does look hilariously dated now, and while you can get a digital dial setup, this car makes do with analog dials that are at least clear and easy to read, with a digital screen in the middle. Now, because you cannot be a premium car these days without a third-party stereo, the Hyundai Tucson comes with a system by Krell, which sounds like a Marvel Cinematic Universe character, but is actually very loud, very clear, and has a lot of bass thanks to a subwoofer in the boot. Hyundai talks quite a lot about luxury in its brochure for this car, but there's still quite a lot of kind of hard-wearing plastic on the door cards and dashboard. This area down here sounds a little bit flimsy, and just look how much I can bend this bit. In this model you get a swathe of leather look stuff on the dash here, which lifts things a little bit, and there's a similar finish to the wheel and the gear stick, which feels quite nice, although the sun visors feel like they're made of the kind of plastic you would trim a hospital chair in. They do have these extendable plastic sections though, which are great for blocking out the sun. Just don't forget when you've deployed them, or when you put the visor back they'll hit you in the face and then block out the rear view mirror. There's a simple range with a good level of equipment on the base spec car, but there's loads to gain by climbing through the trims called S-Connect, SE-Nav, N-Line, Premium and Premium SE. In the back, in this model at least, you do get heated seats, although that's nothing compared to how heated the argument is going to get over this single USB charging socket. Still, there are two air vents so you can blast cold air at your passengers, and a decent sized door pocket in each door too. But again, no hot drinks. If you must bring a hot beverage into the back of the car, you put it here in the armrest. Rear seat space is quite good actually. There are cutouts in the back of the seats here for your knees, and while the panoramic roof goes all the way back, it doesn't impede on headroom too much. These rear seats also recline to maximise passenger space, or can be set bolt upright if you want more luggage capacity, or frankly you just don't like your rear seat passenger. The middle seat actually is surprisingly good. Even I can sit upright with no particular problem, and because it's set kind of far forward as well, I don't think shoulder room is going to be an issue. There's even somewhere to put my feet because of this low transmission tunnel. Boot space largely depends on what model you buy. The petrol Tucson has 513 litres with the seats up and 1,503 litres with them down. This drops by 30 or so litres if you pick the 1.6 litre diesel, and by 50 litres if you pick the largest 2 litre diesel. The floor has 2 heights, and there's a place underneath to store things like the tonneau cover when not in use, plus a hook on each side of the boot to hang things from and a 12-volt socket for electrical accessories. Before we go on, here are 3 alternatives to the Hyundai Tucson. Nissan Qashqai. This has been around for ages and it's still the car to beat when shopping for a mid-sized family SUV. That's despite rivals, including the Tucson, offering better practicality and a nicer interior. Still, it pays to be first, and the Qashqai remains something of a knee-jerk choice. Seat Ateca. This is the most fun car of this type and size to drive. That's an area that Hyundai has improved upon lately, but it still lags behind when it comes to this Spanish SUV rival. If that's not your priority, then the Seat offers a similarly sized boot and a nicer interior, making it a strong alternative regardless of whether you like driving fast. Kia Sportage. The Tucson's sportier cousin features more dramatic looks and a similarly strong list of standard equipment. The boot's a bit smaller though, and the cabin is more design-led than the ergonomic Tucson's, making it more of a youthful offering to the Hyundai's premium feel. It is not particularly involving to drive, the Hyundai Tucson, and that's especially compared with something like a Seat Ateca or a Mazda CX-5. It does, however, have a very good level of grip, and that coupled with good body control means that it has an overwhelming sense of stability. The brakes are very strong though and can provoke quite a lot of dive. The 6-speed manual gearbox in this car is light but very positive. It slots neatly between its shifts and actually has quite a surprisingly short and sporty throw. The pedals and steering are also very light, although there is a sport mode which you can activate to add weight to the latter. You do have to press the button twice every time you want to change modes though, which is kind of annoying, and to be honest with you, I'm not really sure it adds much. This turbocharged 1.6 litre petrol engine that we've got in this car is the fastest model from 0 to 62, although I think if you get the 2 litre diesel it will feel just as strong in everyday conditions, potentially even better, thanks to a lot more low down torque. Elsewhere in the engine range there is a non-turbocharged version of this petrol engine, which is good if you're not in a particular hurry, and a 1.6 litre diesel engine boosted by 48 volt mild hybrid assistance, and that in particular offers a great blend of efficiency and performance. On that last point, it is worth noting that this 1.6 litre petrol engine will absolutely drink fuel if you push it too hard. We saw 25 mpg on one particularly spirited drive. Trouble is though, unlike the diesel engines in the Tucson range, you do need to work this petrol engine quite hard to get the best out of it in order to keep it in its relatively narrow power band. Let the revs drop too low and there can sometimes be a bit of a delay before the power comes back in. What I mean by that is that the power from the turbo comes in one big whoosh, and then you have to shift up before the power fades, otherwise all you get is just more noise. That said, if you keep the engine within its range, it does make quite a good noise. It's gruff without being too strained. The ride is nicely judged, although on this car with its big wheels it can sometimes feel a little bit jiggly. I think a cheaper spec with smaller wheels and a bit more tyre sidewall would be better at dealing with smaller tarmac imperfections, but then again it probably wouldn't look as cool. Either way, the Hyundai Tucson is commendably quiet on the move with very little wind or road noise, and the engine is barely audible at tickover, all while cruising on the motorway. Before we get to the verdict, if you're still trying to decide whether this car is right for you, here are our top 3 choices based on budget. For the cheapest car to run, you'd be best suited by the 1.6 litre naturally aspirated petrol engine in S-Connect trim. Company car drivers should head straight for the 1.6 litre diesel engine with 48 volt mild hybrid assistance, 2-wheel drive and a manual gearbox, as this produces the least CO2, and something like SC nav trim upwards, as that car comes with sat nav as standard. Performance car fans are best served by the N-Line model in terms of sporty styling, and the turbocharged 1.6 litre petrol engine, which is the only version that clocks a 0 to 62 mile/hour time under 9 seconds, although the 2 litre diesel is also a good choice. There are loads of cars like the Hyundai Tucson, and at times it can be a little bit difficult to differentiate between them all. What we have here is a good looking, practical, safe and above all good value for money SUV with a measure of luxury thrown in too.